During the Revolutionary War, Connecticut was known as the Provision State, supplying troops, food, and equipment to the front lines where America's freedom was won. Today, Hartford provides to its state and region in countless ways, but especially in the realm of culture. With beautiful, historic, and new architecture, museums devoted to former Hartford residents considered American cultural treasures, the consistently revolutionary and oldest art museum in the country, and a Tony Award-winning regional theater about to celebrate its 50th season, Hartford is truly a cultural powerhouse, connecting our past and present in vivid and revolutionary ways. The iconic Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Arch in Bushnell Park, dedicated on September 17, 1886, the anniversary of the Battle of Antietam, honors the 4,000 Hartford citizens who served in the Civil War and the 400 that gave their lives for the Union. Right here on the arch, you'll see a bronze plaque. Added in 1987, it commemorates the 128 African-American Hartford citizens who fought in the Civil War. The plaque came out of a research project by then 7th grader Aaron Bethia. The arch, designed by Irish immigrant George Keller, is revolutionary for being the first permanent triumphal arch in America, and artistically revolutionary for combining 3 disparate styles: Gothic, Classical, and Medieval in one unified design. Every Thursday between May and September, visitors are invited to go inside the arch to climb its 96 steps to see views of the park and the city. The Phoenix is one of Hartford's most revolutionary structures. To the south of the State House, standing 13 stories, the Phoenix Building, also known as the Boat Building, was built by master architect Max Abramovitz in 1963 and was the first 2-sided structure in the world. In 2005, the building was placed on the National Register of Historic Places, and in 2010 was awarded a Silver LEED certification from the U.S. Green Building Council, making it the first building in the nation to hold both distinctions. We're here at the Mark Twain House and Museum in Hartford, and I'm speaking with Jacques Lamar, who's the Director of Communications. How are you today?
Good. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Well, could you tell us a little bit about the history of the Mark Twain House?
Well, the Clemenses, Samuel Clemens and his wife Olivia, Sam, better known as Mark Twain, came to Hartford in the early 1870s because his publisher was here in Hartford, and they loved it so much that they decided to build their home here. And so in 1873, they hired an architect out of New York to design this 25-room mansion, and they moved in 1874, and they lived here for 17 years, and it's a National Historic Landmark, and we're on the National Historic Register as well.
Now, this was built as a replica of something that Mark Twain really loved, right?
Well, that's a misconception.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Okay.
Some people have quoted him as saying the house is a combination between a Mississippi riverboat and a cuckoo clock.
Okay.
But there wasn't necessarily a particular effort to make it look like a Mississippi riverboat, but there are certain things like the Texas deck, which is right off this room, which they didn't call it a Texas deck, but it mirrors kind of like a Texas deck on a Mississippi riverboat. So even we perpetuate that myth a little bit.
Gotcha. And we're standing in the billiards room.
Yes.
Are there any interesting facts you can tell us about this room?
Well, this room was his man cave, and it's really dedicated to the things that he loved doing the most, and that is playing billiards, smoking cigars. A fun fact is he would smoke over 20 cigars a day.
Wow.
He would also drink, and this is the room where he came to write. He was in this room when he worked on the classics that he wrote during that 17-year period, and those are the books like The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, The Prince and the Pauper, Connecticut Yankee, and King Arthur's Court. So some of the great works of American literature were created in this very room.
What about more recently?
Well, the thing that we are most proud of is that we recently found out that National Geographic said we were one of the 10 best historic houses in the world.
Are there any other fun facts that you would tell us about the house?
Well, he lived here with his wife and his 3 children, and they had a staff of about 7 to 8 servants. And over the past few years, the TV show Ghost Hunters has come and done 3 investigations of the house, and some people think that perhaps his daughter and one of the servants is still in the house. So if you come on a tour, you might have a little spooky encounter. And we do offer ghost tours of the house on certain nights during the month. So you can always check our website, marktwainhouse.org.
I'm here at the Wadsworth Athenaeum with Susan Talbot, the Executive Director and CEO of the Wadsworth. Could you tell me a little bit about the history of the Wadsworth?
The Wadsworth Athenaeum opened in 1845, and it's the oldest art museum in the United States. We have always had a history of innovation, despite the fact that we're very old, and this museum was really built on the idea of showing what's new in art and what's old in art. And that conversation between the past and the present is critically important to everything we do here. We're standing here in our newly renovated galleries in front of our great painting by Caravaggio. And I have to say that this is the very first time in my long career that I've presented the work of a convicted murderer. Caravaggio, when he was a young man, murdered his tennis partner, but he is known to be one of the greatest painters. And there are very few paintings by Caravaggio that exist, only 7 in the United States. And so for us to mount this great show of this absolute genius here in Hartford, Connecticut, is something very rare. Caravaggio was very unpopular, actually, when this work was collected in the 1940s. His genius only became acknowledged much later. And so we were really doing something quite unusual and avant-garde when this work was purchased. And it really illustrates the fact that the leadership of the Wadsworth Athenaeum, my predecessors, they were always looking toward what was either new or what was not acknowledged, but still showed brilliance.
I think that's very exciting and might even be a little revolutionary. What do you think?
I just like Connecticut.
Yes. Do you have a fun fact for us, something that maybe people don't know about the Wadsworth?
Well, for instance, we were the first museum in the United States to mount a show of the work of Pablo Picasso. At the same time, we were the first museum to do a show of the Surrealist artists. So our great Salvador Dali painting, which is really an icon, everybody recognizes it. That was purchased very early on when we had that great interest in Surrealism.
We're here at the Harriet Beecher Stowe Center in Hartford, located on Forest Street. And we're speaking with Catherine Kane, the Executive Director. How are you today, Catherine?
I'm great.
Great, on this beautiful, glorious day.
It's an absolutely fabulously, greatly deserved spring day.
Could you start by telling us a little bit about the history?
Well, this is Harriet Beecher Stowe's final home, and Stowe, of course, was best known around the world, internationally famous for Uncle Tom's Cabin, and she wrote 30 books, and we use that whole story and Stowe's impact to inspire social justice and positive change. That's our mission. So you can tour Stowe's house and hear about her life here in Hartford, where she lived for 35 years, actually, and you can attend one of our programs, or on a day like this, you can drop by and visit these gorgeous gardens. We have some Connecticut notable trees. We have the biggest pawpaw in the country. We have the biggest Merrill magnolia in Connecticut, and it just finished blooming. And we have one of the oldest dogwoods, the biggest dogwood in Connecticut, which was here when Stowe was here. So you can see it right now because it's blooming.
Great.
And there's a descendant of the original dogwood right above our heads, and in the back garden is the original dogwood. Stowe said gardens are a healing place for the soul, and so we're like a park right here in Hartford that anybody can visit anytime. We hope also that they'll take a house tour or participate in one of our programs, but stop by and check out the blooming things. We've recently been added to the national list of National Historic Landmarks. We are just delighted about that. We think it's long overdue recognition. So we're celebrating that with everybody. And it recognizes Stowe's impact because as a 19th century American woman, there were many limitations around what she could do to be an engaged citizen, but she didn't let that stop her. She picked up her pen and she changed the world.
Our last stop is our own Hartford stage. We're going to speak with Max Williams, Associate Artistic Director. So can you tell us a little bit about the history of Hartford Stage?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Hartford Stage was founded in 1963 by a fellow named Jacques Cartier, although he's American, not a Frenchie. He had just graduated from the Yale School of Drama, and he got in his car and started driving around looking for a city in need of a theater. And he decided to head north, and he didn't have to go too far. The first city he came to was Hartford, and he realized that there was no regional theater here, and so he founded one.
Well, the theater has a milestone coming up, right?
That's right, our 50th anniversary. So we've got all sorts of celebrations planned. It's going to be a fun year.
Can you tell me about a recent accomplishment of Hartford Stage that you're proud of?
Oh, which one? We're proud of so many. You know, this year's really been a banner year for us, and especially with Darko coming in and a sort of more global focus, I think that he has than we've had. For the past 10, 15 years, we've really been focusing on American playwrights, the great American classics. And while we're certainly producing those, we have this past year mounted 3 world premiere productions, all of which have gone on to further life. So we had a wonderful play with music called Breath and Imagination by Daniel Beatty, which toured to Pittsburgh and is going to have a life at many other theaters around the country. Most recently, we collaborated with the great Mikhail Baryshnikov and a company called Big Dance Theater in New York to create a kind of multimedia adaptation of a Chekhov play called Man in a Case. That's going to be touring all over to DC and to Boston, and lots of plans to actually tour it globally, perhaps to New Zealand, Japan, and so forth.
Wow.
And then earlier this year, we premiered a musical, A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, and I think all of us were even surprised by how well that kind of took off, how much our audience responded to it. Obviously, we're a theater that's very committed to the city and to the community here, and it's a joy to, when you work on something that's kind of homegrown, you know, in this city, to see people in the rest of the country and even in the rest of the world really notice Hartford Stage and notice Hartford and the great work that's coming out of here. And part of our goal, if not our mission, is to bring kind of the best of what's happening in world theater to Hartford and bring the best of Hartford to the world.
We hope that you will vote Hartford your Connecticut fan favorite.